So, I mean, there's lots of data, Paul, and in terms of, obviously the number of properties, we've talked about yields, we've talked about vacancy rates. What are some of the things within the data that you're looking for? Because, people can see the numbers, but the numbers might not mean anything to them. So are you looking for changes? What are you actually looking for in the numbers?
Yeah, it's a good point, because to be honest with you could probably take all 24 of the different subscriptions, paid and non-paid, that we've just gone through there, and probably out of that, probably look at data for literally years and probably realise that there is just a lot of data ultimately. Then it's how do you disseminate what actually means anything and what's going to affect change, because that's really all we're trying to figure out is data, what is actually going to create change. Maybe not change now, but change in a period of time. And it's potentially not necessarily, the problem with data too is it's always historical. So you're never looking at future data necessarily. You will look at what's happened, and you will look at it within the last 6 months, the last year, the last 2 years, so on and so forth. And you can go right back to really literally 1900s and figure out what's happened since then to now and try to drag out all that data. But for us, it's trying to find a combination or a correlation between certain data points which are working in our favour, in addition to what we can see from announcements and or commitments from both population growth, be it also things such as infrastructure spends, commitments to certain jobs creators, supply v demand that's happening now, but also how that's going to correlate to probably more of a crescendo of saying we can see where it is, we can see where it's going, we know where we are in 5 years, and from a commitment perspective, that therefore gives us much more confidence, because ultimately if this was going to end up here, then we'd say, look, it's guaranteed by here. But ultimately it's the combination of where we see data, where it's actually pointing to much more of it in our favour. Things like we've just had, more or less half a dozen state budgets handed down over the last week, and what we do as an office right now is just look through what does this mean for every single one of these markets, both on the macro across the state, how does that funnel down to every single particular market. I mean, we look at right now, New South Wales was handed down. Last 24 hours, we've got a lot of work to do to figure out what does this actually mean. We've got a change in the New South Wales planning scheme that's going to go live as of next month. What does this mean for anyone who owns a home or an investment in New South Wales? And effectively, we've seen that the data suggesting we might be on a slide at the moment. In the next 12 months, 24 months are going to show that we'll probably see markets quite spotty. But there's still going to be opportunities right across this state, for example. That's, I think, because we see data suggesting that we're seeing a declining market, then everyone's going to overlook Sydney, Greater Sydney areas, New South Wales as a general, but there will be opportunities similar to will be in Victoria as well. So I think it's more so also looking at what's happening as opposed to just what data points are showing from our side of things where they're starting to probably work in our favour.